Can't believe he got me up here doing this at 10 o'clock at night with work in the morning, but here we are, and that's what I was taught to do as an alcoholic in Alcoholics Anonymous, is to not say no when somebody asks you to do something. I've been bamboozled quite a few times over the years by the people that taught me that when they asked me to do stuff. A little bit about me. I got introduced to AA at 13 years old. I almost drank myself to death at 12, and it took me 16 years of being in and out of the program to actually give this thing a fair shake, and a lot of pain and misery along the way as far as trying to figure out a way to do it other than hanging out with you guys on a Friday night, because frankly there's better places to be. A lot of treatment centers, a lot of homelessness. My story is the same as everybody else's story. I won't go into, if you know, you know. So my experience outside of AA, like I said, is it's a lot of misery on the streets. At some point it stops being fun and becomes a full-time job, and it's a really shitty job, and the pay is really shitty, and the hours suck. It's just not fun at all at some point. And as somebody that's been in and out, my first exposure to AA at 13 years old was like 85-year-old men with my grandfather, and I wanted nothing to do with that. I couldn't relate to anybody, and that was a lot of my experience in and out of treatment, is comparing myself to others and figuring out why y'all are worse than me, or I'm worse than y'all, or why we're different, so that I don't have to relate to y'all to hang out with. I don't want to have to do what y'all do. Y'all might need this. I know the first time I was sitting in a treatment center right after I turned 18 and listening to people tell stories, and I was like, man, that guy is fucked up. And then you fast forward 10 or 11 years, and I'm like, God, I shit all over that guy's stories now. That guy looks like Cupcake compared to me. That's my experience. I drew a lot of imaginary lines in the sand that I told myself I was never going to cross, and I crossed every single one of them along the way. And at some point, you kind of run out of lines to cross. You're like, damn, I done did it all. And it sucks when you wake up and you're alone and you're homeless, and you would rather, not be sick than eat multiple days in a row. And I remember before I got sober this time, having been to treatment center, been 4 or 5 different times up to this point, having been through Back to Basics 35 fucking times or whatever it was, picked up 6 trillion slip chips. Brian's watched a lot of that over the years. He used to watch me nod out in meetings quite on a weekly basis, basically. And where I was before I got sober this time is I was either going to put a bullet in my head, or I was really going to try AA again. And something brought me back to AA. I got to a point where I felt like the only rational thing I could do to stop what I was doing, because I didn't want to do it anymore, but I couldn't not do it, was to end my life. And my option was either shoot myself or go back to treatment and actually try to give the steps a fair shake. And I've been sober ever since. By the grace of God, here we are today. And for whatever reason, people think I'm qualified to climb up on a stage and talk to y'all. It's a miracle I can form a rational thought in my head or string together a sentence. My brain, by all rights, should be Swiss cheese at this point. But it's really cool to get to come here and to stay here for as long as I have. When I got sober, I fell in with a group of guys that was really serious about this stuff, and they intimidated the shit out of me. When I first went to my home group and listened to some of the people speak, I was like, I felt like I was right where I was supposed to be. You know what I mean? They knew exactly what I was and who I was, and I had never met them a day in my life. And everything they said resonated with me, and I was like, well, you psychopaths are my new friends, I guess, and I guess I'm going to follow y'all around so you can teach me how to live my life. And that's what it looks like. One thing I figured out about the steps is they're not designed to get me sober. That's one of the symptoms. It's a really good symptom of the steps is I get sober and I can stay sober, but my issue as an alcoholic of the type that I am is, frankly, I just have no idea how to live my life. And still to this day, 5.5 years sober, A lot of time, I don't know how to live my damn life. Uh, and that's what cool about, like, having God in your life is I don't have to. Some days I fall victim to the belief that I have. Me and Justin were talking about this the other day. I still fall victim to the belief that I'm qualified to run my life at times, and I'm reminded, usually pretty swiftly, that I'm not. It's just a matter of what my tolerance for pain is, which is still pretty high, amazingly. I can deal with quite a lot of anguish before God really gets my attention. My life today, though, man, and it's crazy as an alcoholic like myself. I get so caught up in me and my life and the things going on around me that I lose sight of how good things actually are. And it takes seeing some fucked up shit that somebody else has going on to get me grounded in some sense of gratitude again, which is, it's really kind of sick if you think about it. The fact that if James tells me a shitty story about what he's going through, I'm like, God, thank God. I'm doing pretty fucking good out here, man, But hey, that's what's good about having alcoholics around you, If I could have drawn it up from the day I got sober, when I got sober, I had nothing. I was homeless. I had no money. I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt. I had no vehicle. I'm a low bottom guy. I ride the motherfucker till the wheels fall off, and then I steal some duct tape and put it back together and keep riding. And man, I was hit whenever I came in here. And I got a sponsor and I worked steps. And I fell in with a group of guys and I started doing service work, and I followed them around, and they taught me how to live my life. They taught me how to become a useful member of Alcoholics Anonymous. They taught me how to find God. They taught me how to pass God on to other people, and the recipe that got me sober and really worked so well in the beginning is the same recipe today. Nothing I do is new. That was the funny thought I used to carry around with me before I got sober, is like, man, the shit I come up with is revolutionary. I'm the smartest fucking person you've ever met. I'm so special. And then you hear people and you're like, motherfucker stole my idea, But it's cool, man. The recipe works, and it continues to work. It's just such a blessing today to be able to, my biggest thing today, I guess, as somebody that was never capable of stringing together more than like a month. I'm the type of guy that will go to rehab and get loaded all through rehab, and have done it a couple times, actually. So for me to put together even a week or two is literally a miracle, and to be here today with the idea that, I just want to be here as long as I can with you guys and still be able to serve. The last time I was in this room was when I was doing hospitality for Area 27 as a whole on a state level, and I fucking hated every minute of it. It was one of those things. It's literally, it's a microcosm of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? It's like leading up to it, the week before, I hate everybody associated with Area 27. I can't believe you assholes asked me to do this and cook all this food, and I'm standing in my freaking driveway at 2 in the morning with a headlamp like some tweaker, cooking whatever in a crawfish pot, pissed off, and then show up here and do it and be glad I did, And it's the same thing tonight, right? I didn't want to be here. I got work in the morning. I can't believe James bamboozled. He's lucky this was after hunting season, because I would have shot him down like I did last year. But the cool thing is like my experience in AA is it really doesn't matter how I feel about it, because that's awful. It's obviously subject to change after the fact. But what's important is that I tie my shoes and I show up. And what's cool about it is when I show up and I ask God to show up, He shows up. And I'm usually grateful for doing it after the fact. And I know that today, and the only reason I know that today is through collecting enough evidence to say, okay, I'm pretty confident, because every time prior to this He's shown up, that He'll do it again. And that's a lot of the time what carries me through. Life is still life. Still days I hate motherfuckers. I cuss people out in traffic. Sometimes grandmas, I still think about beating people up and dragging them through their windows when I'm driving down the street. I live with a lot of hypothetical stuff in my head where I just wish a motherfucker would. What would really ease the pain a little bit? If somebody just tried to home invade me and I could just rightfully splatter their brains whenever they came in through my door. And it never happens. I don't know why. It's crazy. But I do that with every situation in my life. I'm still like, that is my thought process. And still, with God at the forefront of my thoughts, trying to be of service to another human being, that's the first thought that pops into my head. In any given situation, it's nuts, right? I'm not like some holy rolling, every thought is God. No, like I'm highly dependent on the second thought because the first one is still very Matt-oriented and is very sick, Wish I could say it's gotten better. I don't think it's ever going to get better. The cool thing is I used to act on that first thought a lot, and I don't today. Thank God. You guys would not like me more than you probably don't like me already. It's just psychopath, I don't think normal people do that. I don't know. You probably get some weird looks in a room full of normal people if I sat here and I told them what I'm telling y'all today. They'd be like, don't ever call that guy again. Get him out of here. Put him in a fucking foamy room with a straitjacket. He does not belong in society. And that's what's cool, As a member of Alcoholics today, I feel like I'm just cleverly disguised as a responsible adult, wandering around the earth. I own my own business, and I have some cool material possessions today, and people trust. Dude, I'm doing a job by the LSU Lakes. It's probably a $5 million home, and the dude leaves me his keys to his house and lets me go work in his house. You know who I am? You know what I do. Hopefully he doesn't, Probably wouldn't trust me in there, but it's super cool, man. The people that I've met, the relationships that I've formed, I have a lot of normal friends, and I do a lot of cool stuff outside of AA, which I think is important too, is figuring out how to live your life and also find things outside of AA where you can still find God and be of service to another human being. And that's what's so cool, as far as like the 12-step talks about practices and principles in all my affairs. I spend a lot more time outside of these rooms than I do inside of these rooms, and for me as a member, it's not that difficult to be spiritual for an hour when I'm with y'all. Sometimes it is, but as long as I'm with y'all, I can fake it. A lot of the time that I'm not around y'all, it's more difficult to be spiritual, and I find that that's kind of the make or break moments of my life where I can actually incorporate some of the things that y'all taught me to do into other areas of my life where I spend a lot more of my time, and I get cool results from that. I spend as much time as I can outdoors. Nature is church to me. I get to do some really cool stuff that I'm not qualified to do, as far as hunting and fishing and just enjoying my life today. And I get to find God in all those places and watch people enjoy it with me and have deep conversations. And it's a beautiful thing, And I think as an alcoholic, this is just my experience and my opinion, life just means a little bit more to us, and I've gotten to explain that to some of my normal friends, and they're just like, what do you mean? I'm like, I was at my buddy's bachelor party in Costa Rica a few years ago as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was invited, like, I don't know if you know, but like Costa Rica's like cocaine and hookers, and I was invited to go do that stuff. Not cocaine and hookers, they didn't want me there for that, but I got to go DD for everybody in Costa Rica, and I had a couple guys walk out on the porch, because this is my big thing, right? Like, I pray and meditate every day, without fail. I hit my knees in the morning, this is what I've done since I was in treatment and I got sober. And I had a couple of my buddies walk outside, and I was on my knees praying on the back porch overlooking the rainforest of Costa Rica, and they started, this is me, I got pissed off at them for interrupting my prayer and meditation, because I'm so spiritual. I'm like, fucking leave me alone for like 10 minutes, you crackheads. And this beautiful conversation took place after this, right? Where they kind of like, we got into conversation about God and beliefs. And my buddy's brother was basically telling me exactly what I know about agnosticism. And to to basically set aside my prayer and meditation time to have a conversation about spiritual beliefs and having trouble buying into something spiritual, something bigger than you. And, it wasn't until like an hour later where I realized, like, oh, that's exactly what God wants you to be doing, not praying and meditating, But it was just a really cool moment to be able to share with somebody. And that's to me what I've come to learn, man. Like, I don't know what's best for me. I don't know where God wants me to be. And a lot of that is what I ask for in my prayer. Is just like, you put me where you want me to be. Because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. The longer I stay here, the less I feel like I know what I'm doing. And I think that's cool, because I'm still teachable to a degree whenever I'm not convinced that I know what I'm doing. But I have to get direction. If I wake up in the morning and I just leave and go on about my day, y'all probably read about me in Crime Stoppers. That's just the type of, that's what I'm built to do, is just fuck shit up. And today I don't have to do that. It's really cool, It took me like 2 or 3 years of being sober to not panic every time the police got behind me, And I've been pulled over and ticketed and let go for the first time in my life. When I was sober, I was like, y'all aren't going to tear my shit apart and put me in handcuffs? This is fucking nice, bro. I get to go in my own vehicle. I like this. I don't have to freak out about you guys anymore. What a miracle. How am I doing on time, James? Oh, I'm fucking up. I'm out of time. Who's up next? Anyway, there is a better life, and what's beautiful is, you don't have to do that shit ever again if you don't want to. There's people out there that will show you the way they showed me, There's people to follow. It's pretty cool, That's all I got.
I'll be a gentleman, Sarah. Everybody, Jody, alcoholic. Sobriety date is 3/20/24, which is actually my belly button birthday. Remember the person, she was like, man, I'm sorry you got to go to detox for your birthday. And I'm like, look, if I get this thing, it's the best gift I can give myself. Yeah, so I'm used to having an hour to tell this story. I do it a couple times at a treatment center a week. So here we go, condensed version. Come from a broken home, took my first drink, at 9 years old. It was a peach wine cooler. Can't really tell you what it did for me, Just my cousin was drinking it, so I wanted to be cool because I thought he was cool. 13, smoked marijuana. And I do apologize for the drugs that's in my stories. It's just, that's my story, and I've had the best results of reaching people with just telling the truth. It's my story, And, but when I smoked that joint, just like the big book, I have arrived. I finally felt accepted. And I guess I'm going to put a timer on. I guess I felt accepted, and for the first time, because all my uncles, that's what they did and everything like that. And, the next time that I, 16, ate LSD, but the next time that I had arrived feeling was whenever I ate ecstasy for the first time, 17. And then 18, I had a child, and, product of the 90s and 2000 rave scene, all that. I did all that. I'm old enough that I watched drugs come and go, Meth came on the scene. I was doing that. I mean, I'm just, just go with the flow, whatever. So I was on that for, 2 years. And, but I ended up getting into a car accident and ended up, hurting myself. And, and from the things I was doing, I was always an upper type person. And, so I really didn't get hooked on pills right away, because who wants to just go to sleep? But, I did, and got caught up in that doctor shopping and all that stuff that we have documentaries on. I'm old as shit now that I think about it. I've seen decades, decades is like a lifetime. I've had several lifetimes. thank God I'm living in the lifetime right now. But you know, I had man, I mean, just troubled student. I carried a gun into school, just worthless. I mean, you know, dude. I never became anything until I entered Alcoholics Anonymous in 2006. I was 27 years old. I was a piece of shit my entire life. Couldn't be a father, a son. Could never worked. Just you know, sold drugs. You know, just all the stuff. If I use, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna sell. You know, and of course, drinking on top of, you know, pills and alcohol is like perfect blend. And so, you know, but I came into Alcoholics Anonymous in 2006, 27 years old, not knowing anything. You know, no one around me ever got sobered up, nothing like that. You know, and I remember, you know, let me back up too. The first time that I met my father, I met him when I was 16 years old in the federal penitentiary. You know, and that's a whole story on its own, you know. So I mean, just crazy things like that, you know. Well, Alcoholics Anonymous, I stayed sober for 10 and a half years, and that was one of the best existences, except for the existence I'm living right now, and it was all due to Alcoholics Anonymous. It gave me a life I never thought I would ever have. Lifelong friends. You know, my home group was the Friday night Frig and the Choose group. Thank God I fell into that group. You know, they taught me how to stay sober. They all worked steps. Man, it was an exciting time, just like I'm living into right now. You know, a lot of us all carried the message all the time. Conventions. I had the opportunity to go to the state convention, and what was that, Kyle? 2013, some shit like that. You know, the International AA Convention. You know, how lucky I was at that time. And it was an exciting time, you know. I got into the service structure like he was talking about, Area 27, and a lot of it, I hated it. But it fed my ego, you know, especially when I'm running District 15D, you know, when I'm sitting there being a part of writing the bylaws of, you know, the central office. I mean, I've done some really fucking awesome shit in Alcoholics Anonymous, but, you know, this all to feed my ego. You know, that's all it was. And that was a humbling experience where I thought I was helping all these people, you know. And then I figured out, I'm not worried about these motherfuckers. It's all about, look at me, Mr. AA. You know, you have a lot of that today. You have a lot of that today, you know. Thank God I went through all that, you know. I'm serious. Thank God I went through that. And, you know, what happened was, about 7 years in, and again, you know, condensed down version. If you want to hear some trauma, come hear me tell my story, you know, when we get a whole hour. But what happened was about 7 years in, that 7-year itch. And, you know, that shit's true. Even the marriage and all that shit, you know, it's crazy. But I had... to be honest with you, I was not living one day at a time. It was accumulation of years, and I thought I had that shit. There's no way there's no way I'll ever drink again. I'm serious. I never thought I was ever going to drink again. Never did. And I remember my sponsor at the time, Thomas LeBlanc. I got finished with all my commitments. I went through every commitment you could go through almost in Alcoholics Anonymous, and finally, I was done running that district, and I didn't have no commitments. And I remember him saying, man, you better get you another commitment. I said, Thomas, bro, I've been running for 7 years, dude. I said, I'm taking a break, bro. And I went from doing all this treatment center work, telling my story, going to multiple meetings a week, involved in you name it, you know, not doing shit, but going to that one Friday night AA meeting, you know. And now I've accumulated a lot of financial shit, so now Disney World's way more important. You know, the camp on False River is always more important. And those are the things I started doing instead of doing AA. And when the flood happened in 2016, I was removed so much from Alcoholics Anonymous that I just, you know, I didn't make it. And I used to tell you that when I relapsed was whenever I took a drink. But it was actually when I went to the doctor, and I saw this later. And they put me on Xanax to get through the trauma and all that for the flood. We lost everything and lived out in Central and house and everything. And for about the first month, I took that shit as prescribed. And I could hindsight, now looking back, the doctor, it was prescribed, when you go to sleep, take your pill, lay down. And I did that for about a month, and I finally went to sleep, and my brain was shut off. But somewhere after that month, I would take that pill about an hour, so me and the old lady could sit there and watch our show and fall asleep, and I could feel it. See, I didn't even know I'd relapsed at that point. Had no clue. And then after that happened, the obsession to drink came on me so hard. And I'm looking at my father-in-law, who's a very successful man, smoking that cigar on the pier with that nice glass of bourbon, and I want to do that, and I started playing on that. And then after I cut my grass and I now have a zero turn. Look, I come from the trailer park, bro. I've never been in this tax bracket before, you know what I'm saying? But now I want to admire my shit with a cold beer and sit there and talk to my neighbors. And I got to do that. I do not have that yard anymore. But what that obsession told me, and this is very dangerous for drug addicts and Alcoholics Anonymous, is that you're a drug addict. You ain't really an alcoholic. Hey, and I got to thinking about that shit, and you know what? That makes sense to me. It was. I love, it made absolute sense to me. And, of course, I don't want to lose the career that I've worked. So, look, and that stint of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was able to go back, get my GED, because, like I said, I carried a gun into school. I was able to become a single parent, get my son back at 9, and raise him, who is now in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm able to, I was able to go to trade school twice, just been able to achieve things I never, ever could. And I did all that through Alcoholics Anonymous. But I sat there and I thought about that. And that obsession was on me so hard. And eventually I picked up a drink. And, and I'll tell you, the sickest part of all that shit is that I sat there and I swear on everything. I said, well, here's the 10 years. Been a good one. And I took that fucking drink. And I lost that career just drinking. I lost that wife just drinking, the house just drinking, and all that shit. Look, I don't want to lose none of it. But the worst part of everything that I lost wasn't when I lost my sobriety, immediately God went away. There was and I went from believing in a higher power to literally believing there is absolutely nothing. God is bullshit. There is nothing out there. But what was even more important than that was I lost my purpose for living. Because I swear, as I stand up here today, I truly believe my sole purpose in life that I was created for was to help people sober up from this affliction that I've been able to make it out of. Not only once, but twice. And I remember there was times I do commercial and industrial HVAC. I remember talking to Kyle after that happened, and I was on that roof. And the realization of that, then how dark it was, there was many times I just wanted to jump off, just end it all. There was nothing. Anyway, so once she was gone, I was able to, once she was gone, then I was able to do what I really want to do, and that was drugs. And, and now I'm no longer drinking or drugging to feel any type of good. I am drinking literally to escape, and done things I never ever would have thought I'd ever done. My drugs of choice right there for several years was fentanyl, crack, Xanax, alcohol every day, and it got really dark. And I wanted to die every single day. Too chicken shit to kill me, but if I could do enough and just go to sleep and not wake up, oh God, that would have been so nice. And I lived like that, just miserable. Ended up in the hospital, guts exploded because I'm a fentanyl user. It just had 9 inches of my colon taken out, and I'm in the hospital taking the tube out. I cannot stop. I am dead. I'm in that bitch dying, and I got that motherfucker running out there and coming back, and I'm doing 1 and 1 off her phone, taking the tube out. Just got fresh out of surgery, and they've done took 9 inches of my colon out, and I'm laid up, split up. It ain't like they wasn't giving me shit. I've still got a pump and everything. It wasn't enough. I could not stop. And I used for another 2 years after that. You know? So when I say I'm here, I'm just so grateful. You know? I can't even put into words. You know, the hardest part for me was getting here. Getting back in these rooms. I thought I'd never, ever be sober again, bro. You know, and you hear that, you know, and this may be true for some of y'all. This was not true for me. You hear that, oh, well, fuck your using up, drinking up, you know what I'm saying? Head full of AA, belly full of booze. Dude, as long as I was in AA, I put that book up. I lost that original big book. And not one time was I out there using, and I ever thought, this is the mental obsession going on. God damn, this fucking, you know, physical allergy is kicking my ass. No. I did not think about that shit one time. When I came back and I started going through that big book again, it was almost like I'd fucking forgot. I was like, oh shit, I remember that story, that man of 30, that's me. You know, but so that's what I needed. Because there was a time where I was trying to get sober in AA for her, not for me. And people was trying to sponsor me. And I'm sitting across from them. They're trying to save my fucking life, my marriage, my career, and everything. And I'm like, why you ain't touch on that? I'd have said this. Oh, but I'd have hit that, you know. I could not get sober under those conditions. So the biggest part for me was getting back here. But once I got back here, bruh, I already knew it worked. It worked for so many years of my life. And when I stopped working is when I got loaded again. And today, I hope everyone gets involved in service work. I have 4 sponsees right now that are, bro, these dudes fuel me, bro. You know, I'm not the type of sponsor that says, you need to go carry the message. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show you. These motherfuckers don't know how to carry no message. I'm about to show you, though. You know, and we do that. We do that every week. We go into a treatment center on Monday. We go into a treatment center on Wednesday. And then we have a big book study at my house on Thursday. And, you know, and that's what we're going to do. Look, outside of that, I don't know how to stay sober. That's what I did the first time. That's what I'm doing this time. It worked for me. And if you want me to sponsor you, if you can't do that, you find another sponsor. I'm not going to play with you. Because you're not going to sit here and say it don't work. You know what I'm saying? But I love Alcoholics Anonymous, bro. I love a lot of people in his rooms. You know, I can't even tell you what the only good life I've ever known has been in Alcoholics Anonymous. Period. That's all I got.
Hey y'all, my name is Sarah. I'm alcoholic. I don't feel good. So if I pass out, Jody, you... Okay, Alex just cut that part out. So yeah, my name is Sarah. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is January 10th, 2016. My home group is Beyond the Bottle. We meet in Denham Springs on Tuesday nights at 7. So it's not that far. Y'all should come check us out sometime. It's like experience, strength, and hope. I don't know, what do they want me to say? What do I talk about? And I told my sponsor today, I don't feel like I'm in a place to be speaking to people. Or, you know, from a microphone. And she was like, well, that's probably exactly what you should be doing then. And, okay, so the first time I drank, it made me feel normal, okay? I'll just start there. I always felt uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable in my skin. I felt abnormal. And, you know, from the outside looking in, I was raised in a good family. I was raised in church. I went to private school. I had good friends. I made good grades, like all the things. But I was uncomfortable. I was not okay. And drinking made me into the person that I wanted to be. You know, it made me feel okay. And for a long time, drinking was my solution until it wasn't. And, it never really looked like a solution, I guess, from the outside, because I was having a good time when I was like torn up. Okay. When I drank, I was blackout, nasty, messy, on the ground, all over the place, like loud. Because I was not really that person. You know what I'm saying? Like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that is so me. When I drink, I become an entirely different person. It was always an escape to me. And I think I also had a living problem, which I still kind of do. Dealing with people is really hard for me, because I don't like to accept things as they are, which I've found here lately. I've been doing some like really intense prayer and meditation and inventorying and trying to get closer to God. And, I'm like looking for patterns in my inventory. And I was like, I see a pattern. I'm resentful at this person, and this person. My sponsor was like, no, the fourth column. Let's find patterns in the fourth column. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm inconsiderate and dishonest and selfish and all the things. So I graduated school. I got accepted to LSU on a scholarship, and I was always a really hard worker and driven, and I made good grades. Should have been really successful, but I couldn't pull it off. And when things were bad, when things were good, my solution was always to drink. I pretty much demolished anything good I had going on in my life. For a long time, for years. Especially when I was in college. I drank my way out of college. I started working at a restaurant. I was working at Hooters, and I became a party girl. And drinking to me wasn't a problem because I was having fun. It's like, this is what everyone else is doing, and we're having a good time, and we're just going out after work. But I always took it to a level different from everybody else. And I would like pride myself on that I could drink more than like all these other dudes, and like it fed my ego, and it's so cool, which really it wasn't. And my friends continued to go to school or, go to work and do all the things, like keep their relationships. And I had to drop out of school. I was wrecking cars. I was just a mess, a complete mess. And I think another turning point for me is I got into a relationship that was very, it was abusive on every level on both of our parts. It was mentally, verbally, physically abusive. I met him in the parking lot of Tigerland, and it was pretty much love at first sight. He had just gotten out of prison, and I was like, that one's mine, and we were together every single day from that moment. And I'm not saying it's his fault, but throughout the course of that relationship, everything in my life took a turn. Like I said I would never do drugs. I looked down on people who did drugs while I was a straight liquid alcoholic. And when I smoked weed for the first time, that was like my second aha moment, where I felt like this is how I'm supposed to feel all the time, every day. And that's what I did, from the first time that I smoked, I did not have another second sober, unless I was physically removed from it. And I don't know, I went from being a honor roll private school college student to being arrested, and selling drugs and willingly going to the hood and like doing all these things that shouldn't be doing, you know what I'm saying? And it got really dark. I had tried different ways to get sober. My sister was in drug court, so I would go to meetings with her, but I never talked to anybody or got a sponsor or even had a big book. I would just go sit in this room and think that somehow I am going to change by just being in there, and then I leave and I'm back doing the same thing that I was doing, and I would try to like wean myself off, detox myself, just, making all these promises, getting arrested and swearing to God that I'm going to stop. Like, once I get out of here, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to change. I'm, detoxing. There's no reason to go back. And I get out and I'm going back and I'm doing the same exact thing. And I could not understand why, and I'm like crying and battling with myself. Why am I doing this? But I couldn't not do it. I couldn't stay sober on my own devices. And I know it took me trying all those different ways to realize I can't do it on my own, I even spent a year hanging around Alcoholics Anonymous without fully working the program. And, to back up a little bit, but right before I went to treatment, I had completely pushed away anyone who cared about me. I was impossible to be around. I would like go off on anyone, anywhere, didn't matter. Spit in your face, just like crazy. Okay, I was absolutely insane. I would sleep during the day. I would wake up at night, come to when it's like sunset, and I had no clue if it was morning or night. I would hear cars passing in my backyard on Jones Creek, and I had no clue if people were going to work or coming home. And, I couldn't hold down a job anymore. My last job, I was trying to bartend, and the whole time I would drink behind the bar, or I was in the bathroom snorting stuff and thinking I am the best bartender in the whole world, just but it got to a point where I just couldn't bring myself to hold down a job anymore. And I wanted to die. I would go to the mall and steal. I had like a mound of shit in my room that I would, like all my stolen goods, which was another addiction. When I got sober, I was like, how am I going to not steal? I really did not know how I was going to not steal. Anywhere I went, I stole, and I enjoyed it. So, I wanted to die. I wasn't like, slitting my wrist or anything, but I wanted to just like do enough where I would not wake up. And unfortunately, I kept waking up. And I got to a point where no matter how many or how much substance I dumped in my body, I could not shut my head off anymore. And it ran so uncontrollably that it scared me. It scared me because I couldn't even feel loaded anymore, And I called my mom and I asked her to help me, which that's another thing. Like, I don't ask for help. I never wanted to ask nobody for help. I got this, I'll figure it out. And it was really humbling for me to realize that I had gotten myself so far deep off that I couldn't fix it. And I had to have help. So I went to treatment, did the 30 days, talked them into letting me stay an extra week so I could get my inventory done, which, I was so convinced I had to do this 5th step for some reason, because you're not about to let me go out into the world and I have to find some random person to do this 5th step. Y'all just send somebody to me. So I do that, never do my hour of power. The girl who they sent, I asked her to sponsor me. Never, I think I called her like twice. And went to sober living. I lasted maybe a week or 2 there because I don't like people telling me what to do. And anything they told me to do, I did the opposite intentionally. They were like, we're going to have to ask you to leave. And I'm like, I was already leaving. So, I get into a relationship immediately, which I really was not looking for, because I had my ex who was in prison still, and I'm like writing him quotes out the big book and stuff, just ridiculous, because I want him to get this too. I'm like, oh my God, this stuff is revolutionary. Like, this is all me, and I'm like reading the different, the classifications of alcoholics and the real alcoholic, and I'm like, oh my, all of this is me. I mean, it describes me to a T. And, I get into a relationship with somebody who's very well established in AA, and it's real easy for me to just go and show up and do the things and go where he's going. And, I did that. I just showed up. And look, I tried to do some stuff here and there. Like, I would get different sponsors, and I think at one point I had written like a 4th step, but that sponsor was starting from page 1 in the book and reading the whole thing with me. And by the time we got there, I was just done. I mean, my willingness evaporates so quickly. When I am desperate and willing, I've got to get to work because you will lose me. Because I start feeling better. My ego rebuilds itself, and I forget how bad it was. So I sit around Alcoholics Anonymous, coming and showing up and sitting in the chair, making coffee or writing on the board and doing these things. But when it comes to the outside work, like the stuff that actually matters, working the steps, I had no ability to bring myself to do those things. And I'm like praying for willingness, and I mean, I just couldn't. And I couldn't until I ended up having a miscarriage right after like around a year sober. And I got so miserable again. Like, honestly, it gave me the gift of desperation again, because y'all, when I tell you I was crying all the time randomly, like wanted to drink, was scared to drink, knew I was gonna drink if I didn't do something different, and I had that little bit of like honesty and truth and willingness to do something different. So I got a sponsor who, this whole time I wanted this perfect sponsor who's gonna read the book to me this way and know this and all these things. Like, when I really got desperate, I got a sponsor who had less time than me, but she was doing things that I was not doing. She was working the steps. She would go to meetings and share, and she had like a smile on her face and a light in her eyes that I didn't have. And I wanted that. I wanted freedom. I wanted relief. And went through the steps really quickly and started doing the uncomfortable things that I did not want to do, all the things that I avoided. I did my hour of power, where I honestly felt my higher power for probably the first time ever, from being baptized or growing up in church and all these things. Like, I felt my creator in a way that I've never felt. Like, I truly believe it was almost like a spiritual experience. I felt goosebumps, like just this presence and closeness that I was going to be okay. And, started doing amends, which I had made 2 amends or 1 amends before. Sorry, when I was just hanging around the program to my ex who was in prison, because it fed my ego. And, I don't even call that amends, but to me it wasn't amends at the time. It was like an apology. So I start making these actual amends to my family and, the people close to me, and trying to be like rigorously honest and all the things. And, doing service, going to do fifth steps at Woodlake, and sharing at those meetings, bringing meetings to the women in treatment, and sponsoring women. Y'all, the first sponsee I got, I was like so nervous, and I'm reading all these things and listening to speaker tapes, and just because I'm like a perfectionist, I want to know all the things and like do it right, which honestly I messed up a lot, but that's part of the process, part of learning. And I don't know. I mean, honestly, I've been on fire for Alcoholics Anonymous ever since, and I still continue to show up and do the things and sponsor women and make amends when I need to. And I'm not the best at inventory, like my nightly review and prayer and meditation, but I am doing better with that here lately. And I go through phases, you know what I'm saying? Like, I go through times where I never miss a day, and I'm journaling, and I'm so spiritual, and everything's great, and then it's so great that I stop doing it, and things get bad, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm running my life again, and I have to get back to the basics, and that's what I always find. That's what I always come back to. And I wish I could tell y'all the past 10 years have been amazing and happy and joyous, and my life is really good. I mean, I've had 2 kids since I've been sober. I have a bonus son, and when I tell y'all, they are like my life. Right now, I'm like a soccer mom, so my life is picking up kids and getting them where they need to be, and I volunteer at their school, and just all the things, which is really cool, because when I was drinking, if y'all can imagine me like getting arrested or screaming at people in restaurants, which I did, to becoming a volunteer at my kid's school, just I get to do things that I'm not really supposed to do or wouldn't be able to do if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous, because I'm not confused, y'all. Like, I wouldn't even be alive today if it was not for Alcoholics Anonymous. I would be overdosed, probably, I've put myself in positions where people could have killed me, or, would have killed myself because I couldn't take it anymore. And I've been through really, really hard things in sobriety. And I think that's where, like, the hope comes from. If everything was always all good, I would probably believe that I could go drink if sobriety was that great all the time. Because what am I really doing? But I think it takes the highs and the lows. And I always learn so much in the lows. And it gets me in a position where I can work back to the highs, I mean, I have been through things in sobriety where I wanted to drink, and I'm not just talking about like, oh, that glass of wine looks good. I have thought getting loaded will solve this, and it was a fleeting thought, and I was immediately restored back to sanity, and I was on the way to carry the message to women in a treatment center. But what if I wasn't doing those things? I would believe the lie, and I would have immediately gone and gotten loaded if I wasn't connected to some kind of truth. If I didn't have my higher power to stop me, because I have proven to myself time and time again that I can't stop myself. When I want to, when I have no reason to, when things are good, when things are bad, when I'm like praying to God, asking him to help me change, to stop, I'm like on probation, and my family wants nothing to do with me, and all these things. Nothing is a reason for me to stop. Thank God my kids will, God willing, never have to see that version of me. So before I walked out the door, my 14-year-old was like, okay, it's giving self-respecting baddie. And that's the version of me that they get to see, that, I don't know about baddie, but self-respecting. I try to be, right? And thank you, James, for asking me to do this, even though it's very late. I told a couple people I was like waiting on Matt to get home from his meeting to take care of the kids, and I'm sitting in bed fully dressed, makeup on and everything. I'm like, I feel like I'm going out to the club or waiting to go out to the club. It's like 9 o'clock. You know, I need to shower and get in the bed. But thank you, guys. I love y'all.
I don't like doing this, but this makes me really nervous. My name's Casey. I'm alcoholic. My sobriety date is 5/3/23. Okay. Is that better? Okay. I have a couple home groups. Just love everybody a lot, apparently. So anyway, I would start saying that when I was younger, I grew up with, I thought, like a normal household. My parents were together. I had a brother. You know, when I got older, I got into high school, and, you know, I made decent grades, and I was a good kid for a while. And then when I got into high school, for some reason, I just, you know, I wanted to feel something. I wanted to feel energy when I wanted to feel energy. I wanted to feel nothing when I wanted to feel nothing. And it just started out like that. And then it's like I wanted to party when everybody wanted to party. And it started out with just recreational stuff, probably like everybody. But, and you know, that's how it started in the very beginning. And along the way, I got a little further along in life. I probably was like in my 20s. And just, you know, I guess at that time I didn't think it was anything, but it was like, you know, I would take ecstasy on the weekends, and I didn't think anything was wrong with that as long as I went to work every day and showed up to family functions, and, you know, I had a good job, and I would go to work and show up, and everything was good. And I would just, you know, take Adderall in the daytime and Xanax at night, and do cocaine and X on the weekend, and I'm sorry if that offends people for saying that, but anyway, that's how it was. And then one day, opiates came along in my life, and I couldn't stop taking them, and there was nothing that ever grabbed me, and that was a change in my life that day. I will never forget that. I don't know why, but I still remember it to this day, and I just never stopped, and it was like that for a long time. And I had a son. I had a kid before I ever even, you know, started opiates, and it was like the beginning of his life, you know. So he was 3 years old whenever I started using really badly, and life wasn't good. I should have never been with the person I was with, and I thought that, you know, that made everything better. Like, I thought it was making our relationship better. I got married and had a beautiful wedding, had a plantation with just everything. And I was so messed up, I can barely remember most of it. And it was a nightmare. And all I was doing is going through life and checking these boxes of like, you know, I was a confirmed Catholic because that's what my parents wanted. You know, I condemned myself for having my kid before marriage, and then got married because, you know, I needed to, because that was my son's father. I stayed, and even though we would beat each other up on a regular basis and not call the cops, and, you know, that was my life for a long time. And my son, he was around all that, and it stayed that way for a while until I finally left. And I think I only left because I was loaded on bars, and I left. And I'm glad that happened, because it never would have happened. But I had to get out of that because we were going to kill ourselves. We tried to stop so many times, over and over and over. I didn't know anything about AA. I didn't even think I had a problem. I thought I had an opiate problem. We would try to stop, and one of us would try to stop, and then the other one would come home, and then we would do it all over again. And then Friday would come, and we'd say we would stop, and Monday would come, and we'd do it all over again, over and over and over and over. And it was like that for a while. And then a little bit of time goes by, and we end up leaving. We separated, like I said, and it wasn't long after that I had a very partying summer, and I'll skip over that because I just need to. And then I met my other son's dad, and it was like a really short time period because I was still married, and I was only married for a year, you know, and but like I said, we were on drugs the entire time, so you know, who would have thought it was going to go great anyway, based on what we were doing to each other. And so I met his dad, my second son's dad. I got pregnant right away, and he knew I had a pill problem. And so when I got with him, he tried to keep me away from everyone, and I would stay at home all the time. He would try to keep me from going to work. In the beginning, he tried to basically medicate me to keep me at home with a different type of medication, because some people would judge you based on the type of pills you were doing, just stuff like that. And so it was like that for a while, and alcohol was okay. So I started drinking because, you know, I only had an opiate problem. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not a drug addict. I just have an opiate problem, only with one specific kind. And so I was, you know, drinking vodka every day like it was a medication. And I didn't like it, but I just did it because it was the way it made me feel. And I did that for months and months, and turned into years. And I have a son that I brought another one into this world, and I'm still doing the same thing. And no, I didn't use when I was pregnant with either one of my kids. I don't know how, but I did not. I had a really good way of doing stuff and conforming when I needed to conform, or what I guess what you would say, complying to different things throughout my life when needed. And then I knew it was going to end eventually of this drinking. I knew that the explosion was coming because I was just putting it off of using again. And it did. All it did was keep me at home, and I would just, every chance I got, I was going to go find something. Every chance I got. And I did. And I left, and one day I just stayed gone. And I was told that, you know, you need to go to treatment. I thought I was going to lose my son. The older one, I knew I wasn't going to lose him because his dad was just as bad as me. It's the way I thought he was worse than me forever. And so they convinced me to go to treatment, but only reason they were convincing me to go to treatment was because I convinced them that I had to detox before I went. And it was another way for me to manipulate and use and abuse everyone around me until I exhausted every avenue that I needed to along the way. And I did. I convinced my mom to buy me medication, whatever I needed off the street for like 2 months to detox me. That's the only reason I ever went to treatment the first time. And that's how I went. And of course it didn't last long. I went around AA for a little bit, and got some people at Sober Living one time to pick me up. I had already relapsed and got pulled over with them. I was like, oh, they're not going to search the car, you know? And no, I'm with a car full of convicted felons. They searched the car, and I went to jail. And that was the first time that I'd ever went to jail. And I thought this whole time, like, I've never been to jail. I've never had a drug charge. I still have my kids and all those things. And I would compare myself to all those people in treatment, just like probably everybody does. And so all those things started happening to me. It was like I got out of treatment, and then it was like not long before that, I was back into treatment, and it was just getting worse, and it was progressing really fast. And it just kept going. And it got really bad. I mean, there were times where I was living from hotel to hotel and living out of my office. And there were so many different lows. Like, I know people say there's bottoms, but I had so many different ones along the way. And along the way, I guess, you know, you could say a couple more times of going to jail and getting my door kicked in, and the normal, not normal, but for alcoholic, I guess maybe is normal. Getting my door kicked in, and then like getting put on probation, then going back to treatment because eventually I relapsed because, you know, I don't work a program. I go to the doctor one day after I'm working one for a while, stop, and then go to the doctor, and they, you know, write me a prescription, and I immediately take it, and it doesn't take nothing for me to to get to that point if I'm not working a program, you know. And so that last time that I got in jail and went to jail, I wasn't going to go. They were like, the door got kicked in, and then I had to go to court. I bonded out immediately. They're like, you have to go to court. And I knew I had to go to court, and I had been up for months. And I mean that, you know, and I was like, I got to go to sleep. I got to go to court. Never did. Showed up to court like that, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me, was that judge knew me from all my cases before, and he put me in jail. And I ended up going into drug court. I never went into anything willingly. Everything was from handcuffs or because I was trying to get something out of the situation. And so just going through drug court, it gave me what I needed in the beginning. It held me to the ground. It made me have consequences, and it just gave me the start that I needed. And I went to AA, and I got a sponsor this time, and I just stuck around. And I fell into a home group of people, and I kept showing up. And along this journey I've been on, I just kept going back, and I got a service position. And now I just make sure that I continue to work the steps, and I build this relationship with God that I have today by working with other people and meeting with people and trying to do better every day, because it's what's keeping me sober, and I'm aware, you know, and I know what's coming for me. The moment that I stop doing that, I will go to the doctor. I know, like, this is what I know that will happen to me, is that one day I will go and I will believe that I can take a prescription again, and I will tell myself that I can, and I will if I do not continue doing what I'm doing. I don't know if I made my time or not, or if I haven't spoke enough, but so I will say before I finish that my sons today, they didn't get to, my youngest son did not get to ride in a vehicle with me. He's 11, and he's been able to ride in the car with me for the past year. I still have shared custody with his dad, but in the very beginning, the first time I tried to get sober, I thought I was entitled after a year being sober, and it got me sick really quick, and it put me back into this guilt, and I just didn't believe in anything. I didn't have any faith. I didn't have any hope. I just pulled it all back on top of me again because I felt like I deserved it, and I didn't. I've been doing this for years, and who was I to think that I could just, you know, get him back after a year? And now it's different because I'm not like pushing for that. I just want equal stuff, you know, and it'll come when it's supposed to. And then with the 20-year-old, the other one is 20, and we have a relationship. We speak to one another today, and he's grown, but it's not as bad as I always thought it was. I always thought that, you know, that he would hate me forever, but he talks to me. And my youngest son gets to go with me places now, and that's something that, if you knew me when I first got sober, that was something that didn't happen. Anyway, I'm grateful for this program, because without it, I would not be trying to be a better person every day. I would still try and get everything I could out of anybody that was around me. And that's all I have.
My name's James. I'm an alcoholic. This microphone got me feeling like I'm the president or something, bro. You know? Just a round of applause for the people that spoke. They really wanted to be here. Matt might kick me out the house after the night. But let's just finish it with the Lord's Prayer, please. Who woke us up this morning? Lord, Lord, I'll be now and there. I can't.